couldn't be further apart and still be in the same country than you are in those two communities. And to be welcomed by the Queen of the Gullah Geechee Nation in Beaufort at the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church. I'm sorry. And to hear about the issues that are most important to that community, to hear about the extraordinary history there, to see where Harriet Tubman lived for about 3 years, to see the gravesite of Robert Smalls, a hero for this country during the Civil War, who also served this state in Congress. It was powerful, it was inspiring, and it also connected me back to my hometown. In Beaufort, you have a challenge of too much. It's flooding, there's too much water. In El Paso, there's not enough. It's too hot, there's too much drought. But we are connected by that singular challenge of climate change. And it reminded me of something that Dr. King had said at one time, that we are caught in this inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, that we're all part of this same country. We all have a common cause. Now, whether that's climate change or making sure that this economy that works far too well for too few and not at all for too many, whether it's healthcare, where tens of millions of our fellow Americans cannot afford to see a doctor or take their child to a therapist, immigration, where we have millions living in this country, living in the shadows, working some of the toughest jobs we can imagine, maybe at a minimum wage, maybe below that, their immigration status used as leverage against them to keep them in some kind of modern day bondage. We have the greatest set of challenges before us in the lifetimes of anybody here today. And to show you that we have our work cut out for us, we're also a country that's never been more polarized, with a president who seeks to divide us every single day that he's in office, to make us afraid, to keep us apart, to make us angry. And this democracy has never been more captured or corrupted by people who can pay for not just influence, but access and outcomes. People who've been locked out of the ability to cast their vote at the ballot box, voter roll purges or voter ID laws in my home state. And so the challenge is to make sure that we bring everyone into this democracy, the single greatest mechanism to reveal the genius and the power and the potential of a people, to make sure that we employ it to meet these greatest challenges that we face. And that's why at the heart of this campaign is a bold set of proposals to fix this democracy, to ensure through automatic and same-day voter registration that we bring tens of millions more of our fellow Americans into our elections, that we make Election Day a national holiday, sign a new Voting Rights Act into law, remove the barriers that are in place to ensure that every vote counts and every single voice is heard, and then restore faith in our elections, a paper trail or a paper receipt for every ballot cast, full audits for the elections that we hold, and then making sure that we end the practice of gerrymandering, whereby members of Congress choose their own voters instead of the other way around, and get PACs and big unaccountable money out of the halls of Congress. I'm confident that if we get our democracy back, if we truly return power to the people, then we will fully live this network of mutuality that Dr. King talked about, and we'll be able to unleash this force to ensure that we overcome the challenges that are before us. So that's what we want to do in office, but we're not waiting until 2021. We're running this campaign in that same way. It's not just Beaufort, but communities across this country that we are showing up in to ensure that no one is taken for granted and no one is written off, that everyone is invited in at this defining moment of truth. So for your help to make sure that we have the resources to be with those people who will decide this next election and the future of this country, I wanted to say thank you for hosting us here tonight and giving us some necessary inspiration for the fight ahead. I want to tell you that I'm grateful. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to talk with some of you that I didn't have the chance to meet coming in, and if it's okay with you, Donna, would love to answer a question or two that you all might have for me. So thank you for having us out. Sir.
Beto, what is your plan for Social Security? Not only the future security of the plan, but also raising the benefit. Many of us live on Social Security, And although other constituents have talked about their needs, what do you think about raising the Social Security benefit $100 a month, and also increasing the security that all of the wage earners pay to the last dollar of compensation,
Right.
to fix the system?
When I was a member of Congress, I helped to introduce a bill called the Social Security 2100 Act. It guarantees the viability of this program well into the next century by doing something that you alluded to. Right now, there's a cap of about $131,000 up to which you pay into the Social Security Trust Fund. Every dollar, every $1 million more that you make is not taxed for those purposes. So by raising, lifting that arbitrary cap, you generate the revenue necessary to meet the obligation for every single working American who's paying into that every single day. And we adjust the formula to account for expenses that older Americans uniquely face, related to their health care and medications, for example, to make sure that they have the resources to live a life of dignity and not one of penury. So it's just a bill like that, or something better if we can come up with it, that I'd want to sign into law as president. Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
I have a question back there.
Yes.
It's a crowded Democratic field.
Yes.
I think we all recall what happened in 2012 and 2016, where the Republican field was also crowded and some people made fools of themselves. What distinguishes you from the other people in the Democratic field that we should support you instead of someone else?
Yeah. A couple things. So I talked about how important democracy is to our ability to meet these historic challenges. The way that we're running this campaign without PACs, all people from all parts of the country, it's much the same way that we ran in Texas, another red state, a state that had ranked 50th in voter turnout before 2018, but a state transformed by the largest grassroots election in the history of Texas. We went to each one of the 254 counties. So the smallest, the most rural, the reddest places, not in Texas, but on the planet, voted for Donald Trump 97% in King County in the 2016 election. But those folks are every bit as deserving of our attention and our respect and our representation. So we showed up to listen to and learn from them. But we also showed up with the courage of our convictions. And so when we were talking about healthcare being guaranteed and high quality and universal, and being primary healthcare and mental health care, we also talked about healthcare meaning every woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body and have access to the care that makes that possible. In a proud gun-owning state, we talked about universal background checks and ending the sales of weapons of war into our communities, and red flag laws to reduce the number of Americans who die every year in gun violence. And so what I found is that if you are willing to go everywhere, bring everyone in, amazing things can happen. Not only did we win more votes than any Democrat had in the history of the state of Texas, we won independence for the first time in decades. 500,000 Republicans who voted for a Republican for governor voted for me on the same ballot. We produced 2 new members of Congress, both Democrats replacing Republicans, joining the great Joe Cunningham in a new majority in the House of Representatives. And I'm confident that it's going to require a movement like that to defeat Donald Trump, and then again to make sure that we're up to the challenges that we face. And we've led a movement like that. We've done it in a red state. And then lastly, and related, there are 38 electoral college votes in Texas. The last time they were pledged to a Democrat was in 1976 with Jimmy Carter. Those votes have been unlocked now after 2018, and I'm confident that we can win them and not only defeat Trump in the process, but forever change the political landscape in America. So those are some things that might set us apart.
Wow.
So thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Donald Trump was anybody else, he'd be behind bars.
Yeah.
Amen.
You've been very vocal in your support for impeachment. When you're elected president, not if, when you're elected president, what do you do to ensure that justice is served
Yeah.
and he's punished just like everyone else would be?
Right. I remember it was more than a year ago. I was running for Senate in Texas. I was in one of the most conservative places in the state, in Lubbock, on a conservative radio show. And the host asked me a similar question, and I said I would vote to impeach the president. And I know that there were probably people on my team who were saying, "What are you doing, Beto? We're trying to win this race. This isn't what you say." But I felt like I had to say it because the very future of this country is at stake. And we've been able to make this work more or less for 243 years. Really the exception, not the rule in world history, that we can freely choose our representatives. And for that to be violated, for a candidate for the highest office to invite the participation of a foreign power, to obstruct the investigation to find out what happened in 2016, to just this week say that he would take information from a foreign government if it were to help him win the next election, that violates the very principle of self-government. And the moment we let that pass and set the precedent that some people, because of the power they have or the position they hold, are above the law, that's the moment that we lose this, and the 243 years that preceded us will not produce another 243 years of democracy. We may not even have another year or two left to us. So without consequence, without accountability, without justice, we will not be able to keep this country. My hope is that the House of Representatives now, with the indisputable evidence of the Mueller report and the President's words this week, will act. If they have not, I think whoever the next president is, and I certainly would do this, must ensure that the justice is served and that we protect this democracy against any future attacks. So thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it. Thank you all again for being here tonight. Thank you for hosting us. Marvin, thanks for the extraordinary introduction. Grateful. Thank you all. Looking forward to talking with you.